So my name's Dr. Malcolm Boyle. I am the Chief Scientific Officer of NutriKane and the head of the team that developed the NutriKane product range. I started off in medical devices, moved to traditional pharmaceuticals, and now I'm in the medical nutrition space. Having come from the pharmaceutical space, I wanted to use the same level of scientific rigour required to prove that a drug works for the NutriKane products. Obviously we don't have to do safety issues because we're using safe natural foods, but in order to actually prove that they work, there are a number of scientific trials that can be done to actually know how it works, work out how much to take and that sort of thing. So in the last 7 years, we have done supervised three PhD projects which proved how it did what it does, and we've run 3 clinical trials to show that it does actually do what we think it does in a scientific medical area. With diabetes, diet and exercise are the first line of defence for everything. So this has been very well proven. In fact, the only method of treating diabetes that has universally been proven to be effective is diet and exercise. The problem with taking that into the real world is that it's very hard to then translate that into an uncontrolled environment. So if you force everybody to do the right thing, their diabetes gets treated very well. But when you let them do what they want, that doesn't really work in the real world. NutriKane is what we call a medical nutrition product. So this is taking the supplement and the complementary medicine space and really forcing it into the medical space by, as I said, doing scientific studies, proving the things that work. What we're doing is we're actually allowing the educators and the people with diabetes to improve their diet in a very easy and measured way. Yeah, absolutely, and that's really what is the magic, if you like, of NutriKane. There's nothing magical about diet and exercise. As I said, it's a very well understood method of treating diabetes, but the magic is that this diet component of your treatment regime is now something that you can just put into a sachet and mix in with water. So what we've done is work out how much of the food that you need to take and when you need to take it to actually see a result. And that's the difference between just being told to eat well or just being given a supplement that may or may not have some evidence and you're not being told how to use it. We treat it as a medicine, even though it is a food, and we say you must take this much, you must take it at this time and you will see this result. We typically say that don't expect anything for 3 to 4 weeks. Having said that, we have had people see results overnight. So one of the things that NutriKane does is it lowers the GI of foods. And lowering the GI of foods is an instantaneous effect. So you see changes to your blood glucose levels instantly. I would say probably half of the people that we give it to, you can see results within a week or 2, and then the other half see them within sort of 4 weeks. So this is the difference between medical nutrition and pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals are what we call pathway forces, and what that means is that a drug will force your body to do something whether it really wants to do it or not. And for the most part that's a good thing because drugs fix things that aren't working at all. Medical nutrition is different. So the analogy that I like to use is if you think of a symphony, there's 2 ways that things can go wrong in an orchestra. Either one instrument can be broken and you've got to fix that instrument. But another way that the music can be off is every instrument is just slightly out of tune. And it doesn't matter how hard you fix one of those instruments, the music is still not going to be right. And that's what medical nutrition does. It doesn't fix the broken instrument, that's what pharmaceuticals are for. Medical nutrition is to retune the orchestra. And that adjusts everything to let the music play the way that it should play. The two actually work together. So medical nutrition is a huge field of research at the moment, not just in diabetes, but in absolutely everything, because we're coming to understand that drugs work better, or pharmaceuticals work better, if you have the right nutrition. This is particularly true in diabetes. There's been a bunch of papers that have been released in the last year or so where they're saying if you improve the diet of the people, the medicines work better as well. So they're actually complementary. They actually work together, but they work in two completely different areas, that both of which need to be managed to get results. So again, we've known for a long, long time that one of the most effective ways to treat diabetes is to lose weight. In 96% of cases, it has been shown that if you lose weight, you get some manner of management of your diabetes. The interesting problem is that obesity is not driven by the calories that you take. Strangely, as you would think, calories in, calories out, that's what everybody gets told. But actually, whether or not how your body manages the calories and how many calories you want to consume is based around your micronutrients and the effect that those micronutrients have on your hormones, which tell you to eat or not to eat. NutriKane is not a bulking agent like a lot of fibre supplements. It doesn't just physically fill your stomach. What it does is it actually manages your insulin sensitivity. The more sensitive you are to your insulin, not only do you improve your blood glucose levels in your diabetes, but you also get less hungry. You feel less driven to eat more, which is a major problem for people with diabetes, because wild blood sugar levels is one of the things that makes them eat. So we actually help manage the hormones that make you not want to eat and make you use the calories that you get more effectively, so you are burning that fat more effectively. It has been proven that diet and exercise is the most effective way to manage diabetes, and everybody's been told, everybody knows, lose weight and your diabetes goes away, or you don't get it in the first place. The epidemic of diabetes really comes down to an epidemic of bad diet. There's not a lot of ways to get around that, and the problem with that is that the food that we have, particularly our processed foods, just isn't good enough, and we need to improve our diet in controlled ways. So if everybody started taking NutriKane, the worst case scenario is that you would have a better diet, and that we know that knocks onto all sorts of things, and diet modification is the only way we're going to solve this problem. So the short answer is, if everybody took NutriKane, there would be a marked decrease in the damage that diabetes does to our society. Certainly medical nutrition is the key to that, 100%, and it's certainly not just my opinion on that. There's a lot of people now that understand that that's the case. NutriKane is probably the first, but certainly one of the first products in the world where it was designed to be medical nutrition. So there's been a lot of things out there that were designed to make your diet a little bit better, or to supplement you. Fibre supplements and things like that have been around for a long time. But NutriKane was designed to get a result. Supplements and vitamins and things like that, they may well work some of the time. There are people that are deficient in these vitamins, and they will. But what they can't say is, well, if we give it to 100 people, we'll see 80 people get improvement. And that's the kind of thing that we can do through our clinical trials. We can say, well, we've given this to 100 people and 86 people had an improvement in the thing that we were measuring. That's what happened in one of the clinical trials that we did for intestinal health. And that's the difference. What sets aside our results from other options on the market is probably that we do them. What happens with a lot of supplements or vitamins and things like that is they rely on very small amounts of data that were done a long time ago that had spurious results. The difference is basically the amount of data that we generate. So this is what you typically get out of one of the experiments that we do. This is the results that we got from one of the PhD students that we ran. So we did 3 of those, and we did 3 clinical trials, and we're about to do another 3. I think the easiest way to work it out is, if it didn't take them 15 years or 10 years or 7 years to find the result, they didn't look. This stuff takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of man hours, and it generates a lot of data. So if somebody can't hold up 5 kilos worth of paper, they didn't do the work. This is the future of diet and exercise, if you like, diet control. We are never going to be able to improve everybody's diet through the normal channels. It's just not practically possible, and the food industry really isn't interested in making their products that great. What you need to do to manage your diet is find somebody that can prove to you that by eating their foods you'll get a better result, and that's what NutriKane D does. It's proof of diet management. So when you're trying to actually prove that something works or learn how something works, there's several stages to that process. The first stage is to have a look at what mechanism is involved, and that's what the 3 PhD students were for. So they taught us that it modifies the microbiome, which has been shown to be beneficial to a lot of things. It showed the inflammatory pathways that they used, and also what was in it that had that effect, the micronutrients that were present. Then you do animal trials, and with the animal trials we've done both type 1 and type 2 diabetes models to show that it has effect, and that's called preclinical trials. And then you move into human beings, and that's where the 3 clinical trials have come into play. So the first 2 clinical trials that we did were done on intestinal health and constipation outcomes and things like that, and they were done in a hospital setting so that we could control all of the environment and know that it was NutriKane that made the difference. Our third or latest clinical trial, we've got a few running at the moment, was where we actually showed that NutriKane was having a positive effect on blood glucose levels. So again, what you do is you control all of the other variables. So in this case, diet and exercise was managed for both groups with and without NutriKane, and then when NutriKane was added we saw an improvement over just controlling diet and exercise in the traditional sense. We also then sent those people home and got them to continue to do it when they were at home and not being monitored, and that, as I said, one of the big problems is what they call compliance. So when you get into a circumstance where you're no longer forced to do the right thing, do you still keep doing the right thing? Compliance is a huge issue for absolutely everything, including pharmaceuticals, and it's a real problem for diabetes. What we found was that when people were taking NutriKane, they actually did everything better, and that has really long-term improvements to health. So doing the right thing longer and more often means that you end up a lot less sick down the track. One of the things that we found that was really interesting from our latest clinical trial was that we scored exceptionally high in improvement in quality of life on a couple of scales that are standard scales for measuring these things in diabetes management. Having high blood glucose levels is not really the problem as in the way that the patients see it. It's the problem scientifically, but it's not the problem in the way that the patients see it. What the people living with diabetes find is that it makes their life difficult, and it makes them unhappy, and it makes them feel lethargic and all of those kind of things. And these are all very subjective measures, so they're quite hard to keep track of. But what we found in our clinical trial was we just blew it out of the water compared to not having NutriKane, in the fact that their quality of life just went right through the roof, and that included things like just feeling better and being much more alert, not being tired all the time. All of those kind of things is what we call quality of life. The reason why quality of life is really important to us as scientists, obviously it's very important to the people living with diabetes, but again, going back to compliance, is if you feel better, you do the things that you need to do to feel better, and that means that they were doing everything much better when they were taking NutriKane. It wasn't just that NutriKane was having improvement, although we proved that in the hospital side of the clinical trial. It was that when they were taking NutriKane, they were doing everything else that they should have been doing, like eating properly and exercising more, and even in some cases taking their medications, because they felt that they were getting something out of doing it, and that's a big deal for a lot of people. Diabetes management is a multi-faceted multifaceted thing. So that's why most people who are living with diabetes, they'll have a diabetes educator, they'll have a doctor, often a nutritionist or a dietitian as well, because it is a lifestyle condition and you need a whole lifestyle to manage it. And the way that we like to look at it is that NutriKane is a very effective tool for the doctor and for the dietitian or the nutritionist to maintain a healthy diet. It's exceptionally hard to manage these things, even if you're trying to do the right thing. And we have made it easier for people to do that. So we firmly believe that we're part of diet management, lifestyle management of diabetes. And that's why we're so focused on the nutrition side of things, because that's the thing that's very hard to do. So the way that I like to look at it is we're kind of the last 30%. You know, if they're going to their doctor, they're doing what the dietitian says, they're doing what the doctor says, that gets them 70% of the way there. But that last 30% is very hard to get without some help, and we're providing that help. Now, if you're doing nothing, well, you're still 30% better off by taking NutriKane, and you'll see results. But if you really want to manage it properly, it's part of that whole regime to really get the spectacular results.